Are you ready to uncover how cutting-edge technology is reshaping the business landscape? Good, because today on Tech Talks Daily, I'm joined by Will Huber, and he is the CTO at Ahead, a company at the forefront of enterprise automation, AI, cloud solutions, and so much more. And Will brings a wealth of knowledge from his recent transition from CDI, where he served as CTO before its acquisition by Ahead. Now, Will is based in New York City, but he's travelling to Chicago today. But he didn't call off the podcast. He still agreed to sit down and have a conversation with me. So Will and I are going to delve into how Ahead is integrating automation across various sectors like IT, healthcare, etc., and also drastically enhancing speed, efficiency, and consistency while focusing on high-value work. I will also touch on the importance of security, embedding it into every layer of an organisation, and how the rapid adoption of AI has sparked both excitement and concern, pushing the need for robust governance frameworks to ensure responsible deployment. And also, if we've got time, as cloud costs continue to balloon, I also want to explore how Ahead's FinOps strategy is ensuring efficiency without sacrificing performance. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Chicago, where we're going to track down Will for a conversation about all this and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
My name is Will Huber. I am part of the Office of the CTO at Ahead. I'm new to Ahead. I just joined Ahead by way of acquisition. Our prior company, I was the CTO of a company called CDI based out of New York City. And I've joined Ahead as of February 1st. So it's exciting to be here.
Fantastic. And I'm conscious there'll be a lot of people listening that maybe are hearing about Ahead for the very first time. And with the increasing emphasis on things like operational efficiency and productivity, how do you at Ahead approach integrating automation into enterprise IT infrastructures? And what kind of impact have you observed in terms of things like performance and scalability? And if you can share around that just to set the scene for our conversation today.
Yeah, so I think, enterprise automation, I think we tend to think of it a lot in terms of IT. We actually think of automation extending far beyond IT. So, naturally, however, it is typically a common place for us to start, just given the background and the nature of a lot of the things that we do in the IT world. But we've actually consulted with companies implementing automation in other departments outside of IT, things like HR, things like accounting, finance, back office operations, those types of things. And I think, and for that reason, we don't actually have like a centralized, and neither did CDI. We didn't have like a centralized automation practice, right? It's just sort of an assumed thing. In fact, if you look at a lot of our external messaging that you might see on our website or that we communicate to customers, we sort of articulate the different types of platforms and departments that we have from an organizational standpoint. And then we actually intentionally wrap automation like in a visual manner. We have a circle around the whole thing that says, we have to automate across all of these different perspectives and all of these different platforms. So, I mean, we've been in the automation business for quite a long time. In terms of the benefits, I mean, there's the obvious ones, right? Speed to deployment when you're talking about systems. I mean, we still today come across customers that, it takes them months to deploy software or to deploy applications or full systems into production. And automation can take that, measurement of months down to, maybe it's weeks, maybe it's days, maybe it's minutes, right? In certain scenarios, we've actually seen those types of impacts. And I think that has sort of downstream, that has a scale implication. It allows you to do, get to more things because your people aren't tied up, doing manual tasks. There's cost benefit, right? Because those people are spending less time doing those types of things. And then I think there's other benefits that are, maybe less tangible or maybe less, maybe a little more difficult to understand. There's operational benefits, right? There's, consider a case where you've deployed 100 systems or 100 servers in a manual fashion, and a human may have done their best to make sure that they were all configured exactly the same way. And 3 months, 6 months, 12 months from now, there's some sort of operational problem or incident or issue with that system. And you come to find out that it's because one of those 100 systems was configured slightly differently than the others. And so there's benefits in that regard. And then I think maybe another one that's less tangible or difficult to see from the beginning is, it provides your staff the ability to spend more time on more impactful and often more fulfilling work, which gives your people career paths and, growth opportunities and those types of things. So.
Absolutely. And in the context of digital transformation, cybersecurity remains a paramount concern for businesses. And on this podcast every day, we always try and share tips and insights that would help business leaders listening. So can you tell me a little bit more about the strategies that you suggest and recommend ahead for enhancing integrated security measures and how these adapt to evolving cyber threats as well?
Yeah, I think it's obviously a very relevant topic. And actually, this is another example where, we do have a security group within AHEAD.
Yeah.
That said, security is sort of embedded throughout every other group. Like we can't, we have to think about security. We very much advocate for sort of zero trust principles where, you sort of, you verify explicitly, you provide least privilege access, and you assume breach. And to do that properly, we have to think about security through every possible lens, right? It's not just about infrastructure. It's not just about applications. You have to think about data. You have to think about networks. You have to think about operations. You have to think about people. And so we've again, we do have a centralized security group that focuses more on like strategy consulting, but we train our people across the board. We train our network people on how to build secure networks. We train our data center people on how to build secure data centers. We train our DevOps teams how to build security principles into the software development lifecycle so that we're building secure software along the way and not just building software that we try and secure after it's been built, right? So I think that sort of multifaceted approach is important to building a comprehensive security strategy. And in terms of how we do that with customers, we have a portfolio of, we have a red team that does a lot of assessments. They do things like penetration tests. They do gap assessments, vulnerability assessments, maturity assessments. And typically from those assessments, we learn a lot about the security posture of our customers' environments. And then we provide them sort of a get well plan that either they can go and execute on their own, right, through a series of procuring, maybe it's tools, maybe it's investment in people, maybe it's change in process, or we also have engineering services that could sort of, take components or all of that get well plan. And then in addition to that, we actually have our own SOC service where we provide a 24/7 managed security service that's doing real-time monitoring, and then also incident response services as well.
And of course, outside of the security posture side of things, there's also the mainstream adoption of all things AI right now. There's a lot of excitement about it, but as we mature in this field, adopting AI lifecycle governance is actually crucial for deploying reliable and transparent AI systems. Again, huge talking point right now. So how do you AHEAD assist organizations in establishing governance frameworks and ultimately ensure AI performance while maintaining those ethical standards? Because it's quite a tricky balance sometimes, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm surprised we got 10 minutes into this call without mentioning AI yet. It's funny. I think when I think about AI, the adoption rate that we've seen, it's really almost like nothing we've seen before in terms of, the hype and the excitement and the opportunity, I think. But that said, right, I think sometimes people forget that, we'll talk about ChatGPT for a second. It's not even a year and a half old yet, right? And it's got hundreds of millions of users that are using this thing every day. And it's sort of created this craze, like an AI rush almost. And that said, when there's anything new, right? I mean, I think back 15, 15 years or so with like the cloud rush, right? People just rushed to go and experiment and do. And, you know, a lot of times they went out and they saw some pretty cool things. They got some cool outcomes. And, you know, all of a sudden, before you know it, it spirals out of control, right? And so just like with cloud, right, I think there's this emerging need for governance and sort of, I like to call them guardrails or bumper pads around how do we do this responsibly. And so I think that, you know, if I think about like what is AI lifecycle governance, I mean, or governance in general, right? It's really how do we control the implementation and the operation of these systems so that they're in accordance with internal policy, with things like external compliance. I think we're probably going to see some regulation in this space at some point in the near future. You know, and I think the way we're approaching this is we've developed some consulting services where we can deploy teams of consultants that can help customers establish this AI lifecycle policy. And, you know, we talk about things like, you know, we'll have like ideation workshops to identify, you know, use cases for AI systems. That's a popular one. And then we sort of step through a process where we go through, you know, the building of and training of models, the deployment of systems into production, ultimately operating those systems, and then eventually maybe retiring or augmenting those systems if you need to update a model or train a new model or et cetera, et cetera. So I think that, you know, it's an interesting space because, and we don't have all the answers yet. Nobody does. You know, we're early innings here and we're learning more every day.
And another thing we don't talk about enough is efficiency in development, because it is critical for this fast-paced tech landscape that we're experiencing right now. So are you able to shed any light on how you leverage internal developer platforms to maybe enhance development efficiency and foster innovation within organizations? We've seen so many examples of people that get it wrong, but it'd be great to hear some of how you're getting that right.
Yeah, I think, you know, developer productivity is a big problem.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen, you know, if we've seen examples where you survey a developer and you ask them, you know, hey, how much time are you spending actually spending on coding projects, like writing feature impacting code? And sometimes the answer is 2 to 3 hours a day. In fact, more often than not, it is. And I think that they spend a lot of the rest of their time on integration problems, troubleshooting deployments, operational issues, change control meetings, like all kinds of stuff that we've been sort of troubled with over the years with, you know, which comes with manual process and those types of things. And, you know, if you're an enterprise that has 100 developers and you're paying those developers $100,000 or $150,000 a year or something like that, which is not out of the norm, you know, that's a $10 to $15 million problem. When you look at those inefficiencies, you can start to see the magnitude of that issue and why it's important to implement process and tooling and procedures that will increase that 2 to 3 hours a day to 5 to 6 hours a day, right? Or 7 or more hours a day, right? So the bigger the number, the better. And so the way we address this is with our developer platform, or we refer to it as our platform engineering portfolio. Platform engineering is sort of emerging as a well-respected and common term in the enterprise. And really what it is a collection of portfolio capabilities that we implement to help our customers put in systems that can simplify and automate the development experience and the development process through the CI/CD pipeline, repositories, infrastructure pipelines, those types of things. And we sort of break it into 4 categories. We have what we call developer experience modernization, platform engineering modernization. So how do we help customers to release apps faster with standard pipelines? Developer portals. So I think a lot of times you've got customers who maybe they have disparate development teams that are working on different features or different products. And maybe they're using different tools. Maybe they're using, there's no standards or methods or patterns that they use or libraries that they use. So a lot of these developer portals help to sort of standardize that and give everybody access to the same building blocks that they need to build their apps. And then infrastructure automation, which we've talked about already, you know, is sort of part of this capability, which is utilizing things like infrastructure as code and common repeatable patterns to build, you know, solid foundational infrastructure blocks to deploy these apps to. and then integrating sort of that application and developer experience to the infrastructure experience to give you an end-to-end view or an end-to-end experience to build and deploy and operate apps is what we're after with this group.
And we were talking about AI a few moments ago, and we've seen the impacts of AI across so many different industries. And I'd love to zoom in on one in particular, just and try and bring that to life. And the transformative power of AI in healthcare, for example, is undeniable. So, from your perspective, what are the most significant changes AI is bringing to healthcare, and how is it impacting things like patient care, research, and operational efficiency? Because I think we often get bogged down with the hype cycle and everything, but we're solving real world problems here with this technology too, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's a very timely question. I'm actually in Chicago right now we're hosting an enterprise healthcare summit where we have I think it's eight to 10 CIOs from our top healthcare customers. So healthcare is a big focus of the heads. And you can imagine that one of the big topics on the agenda for the summit, it's a 2-day summit, one of the big topics is AI.
Yeah.
So we've seen a lot of things in healthcare. We've seen things like administrative tasks, think of things like appointment scheduling, automating back office things, billing. We've seen things like case summarization and like post-visit follow-up generation, as with generative AI use cases. And then we've also seen things like, imagine, a radiologist, goes into the office in the morning and has 100 cases to review. And maybe the AI can provide a report to that radiologist and says, hey, there's 100 things you have to review, but these are the 5 that are the most critical, right? These are the ones that you probably want to pay attention to. And then get to the others when you do, right? So you want to get to the things that are the most severe first. And then on the flip side of that, maybe there's a scenario where the radiologist reviews a series of images, but what if they missed something that the AI may have detected could be an issue? So it can sort of bring that back to the attention to provide a more thorough investigation and perhaps a diagnosis of that imaging. So we've seen things like that. We've also seen things like predictive use cases where maybe machine learning algorithms can look at things like patient data, combine that or correlate that with genetic information about that patient, maybe lifestyle factors, those types of things, and can make predictive, predictions on maybe future diagnoses so you can intervene early. What else? We've seen in like the real-time monitoring. So let's say you have a patient in the hospital, right, who is connected to a bunch of machines that are doing monitoring of different things. And we've seen some of the EMR companies have developed some AI capabilities to evaluate in real time the metrics and the telemetry that's coming from those machines, and can actually algorithmically predict when a patient's status is deteriorating so that they can then alert a care team to go and intervene proactively versus waiting for a nurse or a doctor or a PA or somebody to go make like a scheduled round, right? So, that has a significant impact on, in some cases that could save somebody's life, right? So I think the use cases in healthcare are and it's early again, like there's going to be so much more that we see, but already we've seen some pretty awesome results of the use of AI in healthcare.
Incredibly cool. And of course, things are not all AI. You mentioned 15 years ago, everyone rushed into the cloud. Cloud is still a huge of importance to businesses. But I think that the problems have changed there over the years. And now it's managing cloud cost effectively has become essential for organizations that want to maximize their cloud investment. So what's your approach ahead for creating budgets and alerts for cloud workloads and ultimately ensuring cost effectiveness without compromising on performance? Again, another tricky balance, but what are you seeing here?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like we operate in a bit of a cyclical world, right? We see, new technology. When cloud came out, there was this big rush to go to the cloud. And I think a lot of customers, and this isn't a negative thing, right? A lot of customers implemented cloud in a way that maybe wasn't optimal, right? They did what they knew at the time. It was new technology. Maybe they didn't know better. there's a lot of reasons why that may or may not have happened. But I use like the classic lift and shift example, right? A lot of customers took their on-premise estate and they mirrored it in the cloud, right? Well, in the on-premises world, maybe that system was configured with more resources than it needed, but nobody really cared because they had all this excess capacity in their virtualized infrastructure, and nobody knew any different. There was no, water meter or electric meter running and running up a bill, right? In the cloud, different story, right? So I think a lot of customers at the beginning didn't really pay much attention to the cost implications of cloud. And not only until they reached a critical mass, at some point the bill starts to grow so big, it gets to somebody's desk and that person starts asking questions. Well, what's going on here? And so, I think, we've been helping customers to, FinOps has sort of become this common terminology in the world is how do I manage the financial sort of elements of cloud, of IT, really. It's not just cloud, right? We have a FinOps consulting or financial consulting division that provides consulting services to help customers establish budgets, do ROI analysis, those types of things. But in the context of your question, we have a service that helps customers. We can establish, and we provide this as a service, but then also we can do it as a managed service. We can also do it as a consulting service where the customer sort of manages steady state going forward. But we work with various different FinOps platforms that allow you to implement cloud budgets that could be applied to applications, environments, teams, divisions, you name it, where you can set spending limits for different user populations or different use cases, which helps you to avoid unexpected outages, right? And there's other benefits, like with those platforms, you can tie alerts to those spending limits, which allow you the opportunity to go in, monitor consumption. You can look at spending, you can do better forecasting, for future budgeting. And then you can set, spending thresholds. You can look at resource utilization. You can find idle resources that might be running that you didn't know about, that are incurring charges that you might want to just turn off or potentially delete entirely. You can look at anomalies to identify spikes or unusual patterns to sort of get ahead of future cost issues in the future. So we've seen a lot of success with that group. And I think, that business is growing because, again, a lot of organizations now are hitting that critical mass where the bills are getting big and they need to do something about it. And this is a way to help them do it.
Fantastic. Well, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to come on here and share your insights with everyone listening all around the world today. But before I let you go, I always ask my guests to leave everyone listening with one final gift. And that can be either a book that means something to you or you'd recommend that we can add to our Amazon wish list, or a song that we can add to our Spotify playlist that means something to you. I don't care what it is. Guilty pleasures are allowed, but what would you like to leave everyone listening with, and why?
It's funny. I'll leave folks with a gift that I've received in my life. We use a leadership coach at CDI. His name is Jim Riviello. So Jim has written a couple of books. You can find his books on Amazon. We call him Riv for short. He actually has a company that he runs. It's called Leadership X University, and he's got all kinds of professional development programs, and I have the great opportunity to meet with him frequently. He's had a profound impact on me and many of my peers. And so you can find him, his website, it's lxu.training is the website. So go check him out. I promise you it'll be worth your time.
Awesome. Well, I'll get a link added to that so people can find it nice and easily. And for anyone listening just wants to find out more information about Ahead and the work that you're doing, the topics we explored today, contact you or your team. What's the best starting point for everything?
Well, I would say everyone can visit our website. It's ahead.com. Very simple. And you can find us on all the major social channels. We're on LinkedIn is probably the biggest one, but others, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that kind of stuff.
Brilliant. I'll get those added to the show notes too. And we've covered a lot today, from how you focus on propelling organizational transformation in, I think it's something like 6 different key areas: cloud platforms, digital engineering, data analytics, next-gen data center, enterprise automation, and integrated security. But yes, we did manage to get AI in there today as well. But I know you're in Chicago at the moment. You're incredibly busy out on the road. But thank you so much for just taking the time out to sit down and share your insights with me today. Thanks again.
You got it. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
So as we wrap up our conversation, think about the technological transformations in your own field. How does technology drive efficiency in your daily operations? What steps does your organisation take to ensure the ethical use of AI? I'd love to hear your thoughts. So please share them with me in the comments, or tweet me directly, or slide into the DMs on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, just at Neil C. Hughes. My email's techblogwriter@outlook.com. Love to hear from you on how the integration of technologies like AI and like cloud computing can further revolutionise industries. So let's keep this conversation going. Other than that, I'll be back bright and early tomorrow with another guest. So thank you for listening today, though. And until next time, don't be a stranger.